What's up, guys? It's Justin, your favorite founder's favorite founder, and I am here back at it again to give you another video. This time I'm going to talk about friendships. So people always ask me, when you sold Twitch, did the nature of your friendships change? Were you surrounded all of a sudden by fake friends and hanger-ons and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And I think that that is often a worry that people have, is like, you know, once they become successful, that everyone around them is going to turn fake, or they're going to surround themselves by people who aren't their real friends, who have their best interests at heart. And you know, there's that story recently about Tony Hsieh that came out, where in his final years, it sounded like he may have been surrounded by people who were just kind of like yes men and weren't telling him when things were going south in his life and he maybe needed to make changes. For myself, I think there definitely is a way that when people see you in a different context, like a more successful context, it could be you made a lot of money, it could be you're a famous YouTuber, or an aspiring famous YouTuber or something, that you know, people, when they see you, they see you in a different way. You know, they see you they're more intimidated. They want to be close to you because, you know, you represent something big to them. That's definitely true. That things can be like that. And oftentimes people, you know, people who have been successful, people who are successful, they are very wary of that. For myself, I always thought of it as a little bit of an opportunity. Well, I've had a number of relationships actually start off that way, where, you know, I remember one time I got invited to, you know, people wanted to get to know me because of like who I am, or what I represent, or what some form of opportunity that I represent for them. And you know, obviously that's not the ideal place to end up, but it was like it was an attractor for people. And then from there, I became really close with them. Actually, some friendships started off as that, and then turned into really robust, real deep friendships. You know, casual acquaintances can always turn into deeper relationships if you go into them with an open and curious mind. I was with one of my other friends the other day, and we were talking about moving from San Francisco to LA, or San Francisco anywhere else, basically, joining the SF Exodus. And he was like, you know, I think a lot of people are gonna stay in San Francisco because that's where their friends are. I was like, you can always make new friends. And he said something that was very surprising to me. He was like, Justin, people don't make new friends as an adult. You do, but you're the exception. Most people, once they turn, you know, they're in their late 20s and beyond, they don't make new friends. And so that was kind of like eye-opening to me. It was surprising. I guess I kind of knew that. And I realized, yeah, I do make a lot of new friends, and a lot of people don't. And so I want to talk a little bit to you about how to make new friends as an adult, because I get asked that a lot. Well, actually, I don't get asked that much, but I think people look at my ability to make friends with surprise and maybe a little bit of wishing that they were like that. So how to make new friends as an adult? Number one, be open. One of the things I think is really important, that's a transition that I've gone through, is I used to think that every random person, you know, this is gonna sound fucking paranoid and crazy, and it was. So I used to think everybody out there who I didn't already know was kind of like an enemy by default. You know, I was like very paranoid. It was a very toxic and terrible way to live. And over the years, I made this transition towards openness. And one of the big parts of that was coming to realize that something Yes Theory talks a lot about. A stranger is a friend you don't know yet. And I think that there's a friendship, and a relationship that you can have with every person out there, no matter who they are, whether they're someone famous and successful that you by default want to be close to, or they're just a random person normally you wouldn't look twice at, like somebody who's serving you your coffee, or a waiter, or an Uber driver. I try to approach every person that I meet as like, this is somebody that I can learn something from, which is true. Like, every relationship is the opportunity to learn, and every person out there is interesting. They have their own life story that contains its own human experience of ups and downs. And even if they can't teach you a skill directly, or give you something that you want directly, or even speak the same language as you, there's something that you can learn from your relationship with that person. That's really how I view it. Some of the most profound moments I've had with strangers has just been listening to their life stories. A couple years ago, I walked into a coffee shop. The barista was just super happy. Normally, you know, in the past, I probably would have gone in, got my coffee, and left. You know, normal transaction. In this case, he was so happy. I was kind of like, I started talking to him, and he was telling me his life story. And he was telling me that a couple years before, he tried to kill himself by overdosing on medication, and the doctors like pumped his stomach and they saved him. And after that, he was so grateful. For life. He was grateful to have a second chance, and it completely turned his life around. I remember he told me that, why do they call the present the present? It's because it's a gift. And I mean, that's kind of cheesy. You know, I think he probably read it on a Hallmark card or something, but that line stuck with me, and it was an opportunity. You know, that was an opportunity that normally I would have been closed off to. But just talking to someone and exchanging experiences with them was really a moment that I remember for for years afterwards. One of the things I do is like when I meet someone new, I'm often thinking, what do we have in common, right? What are the things that unite us? No matter who it is, it could be someone on the other side of the world, right? Who barely speaks English, who's not from my culture, who doesn't like electronic dance music. I mean, it'd be weird to find someone who didn't like EDM, but like, let's say there was this person out there, like in the middle of the desert somewhere. I mean, it'd be super weird, but like, yeah, let's say we found that person, you know, I'd be trying to figure out what unites us. Like, what are the things that we have in common? Along every attribute, every dimension of humanity, there's a bell curve, right? Humans fall on a bell curve distribution. And so you and any random person actually share most things, actually more things than you have differences. And so finding those things, connecting around those similarities is a great way to approach meeting new people. All right, number 2. So number 1 was be open. Number 2, be helpful. A while ago I tweeted, fake friends call you when they need something. Real friends call you when you need something. So, you know, if you really want to be there for somebody, and if you really want to build a relationship with someone, it's all about knowing what do they need and how can you help them along on their journey. I'm the type of person who's always thinking, how can I help someone around? Like, how can I, you know, what do they need? What are they working on? Like, and how do I connect them with some resource or link them with somebody that can help them along on their path? You know, when you're thinking that way, in a way, it's a very transactional way to think, but in another way, you know, you find a lot of opportunities to make yourself important to the people around you, and that's an opportunity, you know, to build a relationship. I think a lot of people don't expect me to, you know, do things for them like by default. So we were just here in LA, I went and gave a talk, and one of the members of the audience was asking about how to sell his company, and I thought of a potential acquirer for his company. And I went out and I told him afterwards, I'll just email that guy because I know the CEO, I'll just email that company after this for you. So like, that's the mindset I'm in. I'm always trying to figure out how can I help people around me, even if I don't know them, if I can help them out, you know, that's something that's gonna build a relationship. And you know, you're not gonna become super good friends with every person you help, but it's something that builds a relationship, and then eventually maybe you do form a real relationship with them. Number 3, really important, be vulnerable. One of the things that really builds human connection is vulnerability. Brene Brown talks a lot about this in her TED Talk, which has been viewed like 50 million times. I'll link to it below, but vulnerability and the willingness to be vulnerable, a lot of people see that as weakness, and they're scared to be vulnerable. But when you are vulnerable and other people see that you're being vulnerable with them in an authentic way, it makes them feel close to you. That's human nature. And so if you want to build relationships, being vulnerable is a great way to bring people to be closer to you. For me, you know, I was someone who was not very open about my vulnerabilities. In the startup world, you got to be like, you know, everyone's always asking, how's it going? And then the default is, oh yeah, we're crushing it, we're killing it, we're murdering it, we drowned it in the bathtub. And there, you know, everyone's always doing so fucking good. So then that's the facade, and you know, and people aren't really letting other people in. And that's what I, you know, for the first, whatever, 10 years of my career, that's how I was. I had to represent #winning like all the time. But when I started to be honest with people and just someone asked me how I was doing, I would actually I'd just pause and be like, how am I actually doing? And check in with myself, and then just say the truth, you know, be like, oh, actually things aren't going so well, you know, and then explain what was happening. That's when people started to feel close to me. And part of what works for me on YouTube, right? Like, why do people like watching, why are you watching this right now? Part of it is that I don't really have that much of a filter between like what I'm thinking I'm feeling and what I'm actually saying. I just go off, you know, it is what it is. And people see that, like, you know, I just speak how I feel, and I think people can see that. And so that's one really important thing to develop your relationship with other people is like, do they feel like you trust them? Are you willing to be vulnerable with them? So how do you identify real friends versus fake friends? So it's all about how do you feel when you're around that person. For me, I've tried to approach the world with non-judgment. So, you know, when somebody does something I don't like, instead of being angry, I mean, first of all, my reactions are my reactions. So if I get upset, it's okay, I get upset. But afterwards, I'm trying to approach the world with non-judgment. So it's like, okay, that person did this thing I don't like. They're coming from a place of fear. They're coming from a place of scarcity. That's okay. I accept them as they are. And I want to decide, do I want to spend time with that person as they are? I'm not expecting them to change. Do I want to spend time with that person? And if the answer is no, if that's my energy when I feel like being close to them, it's like, oh, you know, I kind of want to like be doing something else, then I listen to that. That's it. Just listen to your body. You know, when you're not that into somebody, your body is going to tell you that. And listening to that subconscious signal is probably the most important thing you can do. In terms of determining who you want to be around, who do you want to spend time with. Because every human being, no matter how rich you are, you get 1 minute per minute of life, right? Like you can't get more time. So who you spend that time with is very, very important. Now, let's say you have a relationship where things have gone south and you want to work on it. You know, what's important is that you just be able to speak your authentic truth. So if you feel like your friend has done you wrong, then you should just tell them. You gotta say, hey, like when this happened, this is how I felt. When situation A happened, I felt really bad about it. I felt hurt, and I wanted to let you know that. And if they're, really open and a good friend, then they can hear that and say, oh, like, I'm sorry. I want to work on a relationship. Or maybe they get defensive and they're like, oh, I'm going to keep doing that, basically. Then it's on you to decide, do I want to continue to be in this relationship and build this relationship, or do I want to cut bait and do something else? Just remember, you can't control other people. You can't control what other people do. You can't control how they are in the world. All you can control is how you show up in the world. All right, I think that's all I got to say about friends and friendships. I mean, the last thing I'll conclude with is being open to connecting with new friends and new people has been one of the things that's created the most fulfillment in my life. And I hope you get the same. And you know what to do. Like and subscribe to this channel. I'll be your best friend forever. Go do it. What are you waiting for? And turn on video notifications. Are we done?